Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I want to talk to you guys about a poll that was done by Iraq Vet 8888, and I will put a link to this below in the description. So, Iraq Vet 8888 did a poll where he asked the question: would the U.S. military fire on its own people? Okay, and 77% of the people answered yes. Okay, only 23% said no. Now, 77% saying yes. This is out of 50,000 people being polled. That's a very large poll. Normally, when a lot of these polls are conducted, they're usually like 1,000 people or 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 people. Okay, this is a very large poll of 50,000 people. Now, granted, the people that participated in this poll were mostly out of the gun community that follows his channel. Okay, I didn't even get a chance to see this poll, so I didn't participate in it. But I think some 300,000 people had seen it and were aware of it, and out of that number, 50,000 participated, and 77% said yes. Okay, so I wanna talk about this today, and I want to expand upon it. And like I said, I'm gonna put a link below to his video in the description, so you guys can see it for yourselves and hear his words on it. But I'm gonna say this, that about 10 to 12 years ago, when I used to ask combat veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan what they thought about the possibility of the U.S. military, firing on its own people, they overwhelmingly told me no. Okay, and I used to tell them, hey, listen, you say no, right? But remember, you're not in the military anymore. You are out of the military, and you don't know who the new people are going to be that are going into the military. And like, nah, like I know the people that are training them, and yeah, but yeah. Anyway, I didn't argue the point much with them, right? Because remember, I'm not there. I don't have that firsthand experience. But most of the vets coming back had said no, and now I'm starting to see that people are starting to see the truth, see the writing on the wall, and at least on our side, most of us are starting to understand that the U.S. military will fire on its own people if ordered to do so. Okay, so question becomes, why would they do such a thing? Well, in most cases, basically they're going to take the Nuremberg defense, right? I'm referring to the Nuremberg trials after World War II of the Nazis. They all said, hey, they were just following orders. Okay, so that's going to be the defense that the military takes, and we see it all the time today, right? With police, when they're enforcing, gun laws that they know to be unconstitutional, they'll just say, hey, I'm just doing my job. Basically they're protecting their paychecks and protecting their pensions. Even the cops that say they support the Second Amendment, that they acknowledge that the laws are unconstitutional, even the ones that say they will not enforce red flag laws, they won't go as far as to stop other police from enforcing unconstitutional red flag laws. Okay, so that's important to keep in mind, right? So this is something we've been seeing for a very long time, and there's no reason to think that military personnel would be any different. Now, I understand that after the September 11th attacks, a lot of people that enlisted into the military were enlisting with patriotic thoughts. Okay, so because of the September 11th attacks, the type of people that were drawn into the military were of a patriotic, pro-American, background. Okay, but all those people are now out of the military, so we have to ask ourselves, since those people are out of the military, who are the new people that are going into the military? And I think Iraq Vet 8888 hit the nail on the head. Well, basically, he said that these are the socialist, leftist Democrats, because the military has actively been dismissing a lot of the conservatives, right, they use the vaccine mandates as a reason to to get rid of the conservatives out of the military. So who's left? Okay, the people that are left were the ones that were masking. All right, so you can kind of understand where what their position is, and most of them are being recruited out of cities. Okay, so again, they've been indoctrinated in these Democrat-controlled cities. Today's military personnel is very different from the military personnel of 10 and 12 and 15 years ago. Okay, now the other thing we can understand is that the very nature of the United States military is socialist. Okay, it's big government, right? It is actually one of the biggest parts of big government. Okay, so the very nature of the military is socialism. The capitalist version of a military would be one that's based on militia and mercenary service. Okay, so that's really what the founding fathers of this country envisioned. They envisioned a military that was based on militia. And we can see it and that includes even the Navy, right? Because if you look in the Constitution, one of the powers that Congress has is to issue letters of marque. Okay, letters of marque is when Congress authorizes private individuals to use their privately owned warships, okay, to conduct piracy at sea against enemies of the United States. Okay, so even in the original concept of this country, even the Navy was supposed to be structured along capitalist lines, in this case piracy, where basically the Congress would authorize them to go out, commit piracy, and then whatever wins they get, whatever booty they get, is theirs, right? So that's the nature of piracy. So that's the difference. So today's military is socialist, right, in its very nature, and from its inception, right, versus a military, if it's based on militia and mercenary service, that would be capitalist. Okay. So I'm going to go a step beyond that. Of the now that I have kind of established that the bulk majority of the current enlisted personnel are going to be of a leftist socialist nature, and probably the ones higher up the ladder as well, right? The leadership, because again, that's what's left, right? They got rid of all opposition by now, so everything from the top on down is basically the leftist leaning pro-democrat party. Okay, what would a civil war look like if it ever came to that, or if they ever basically fired on their own people? It would be extremely brutal. Okay, civil wars are very brutal. One of the things I have said before in other videos is when you have a war between two nations, it's basically the soldiers of one side trying to kill the soldiers of the other side, and in many cases the soldiers of each side, right, have a mutual respect for the soldiers of the other side. Okay, that kind of includes the American Civil War, because with the American Civil War, I've always kind of not considered that a true civil war, because the lines were so perfectly drawn. The North was so different from the South. It was basically almost like two territories fighting each other. It was almost like two separate nations fighting each other. Okay, so the American Civil War, in my opinion, is not a very good illustration of a true civil war. When I look for examples of civil wars, I'll look at, for example, like what happened in Iraq. Okay, that was a true civil war, where you had basically one side not just trying to kill the soldiers of the other side, right? We're talking about the Iraqi Civil War now, but the one side trying to kill the entire families of the other side. Okay, that's a civil war. We saw that in Sicily. We saw that in many parts of Europe. After World War II, where when the governments collapsed, after the war, you had a lot of these factions fighting for power in several countries, and the civil wars were brutal. Right? Basically, they were, each side was trying to kill the entire family of the other side. Okay, so that's what civil wars usually you know come to, right? They're extremely brutal. But I'm going to go a step beyond that, okay? Because that's basically kind of where this starts, not where this ends, okay? And like I said, and again, with the civil wars, each side, the reason why they become so brutal is because each side sees the other side as traitors. Okay, so it's not just soldiers of another nation; these are traitors that need to be, exterminated, and their entire family line needs to be exterminated so that the next generation is prevented from coming up and doing the same thing. But going beyond that, I see this going even a step further. And I did cover this in prior videos. You'd probably have to go back, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years to find this video. I did a video on the migrants, the illegal migrants coming across the border. What do you think they're going to do with all these illegals that they're bringing across the border, right? Those illegals, okay, are going to be recruited, okay, into the new United States military, okay? And this military is going to be even more brutal, okay? Because unlike the leftist socialists, right, to them, some of them might still have some connection to the population, okay? But a military based on the migrants that they have coming across the southern border, those people, they have no connection to American history. They would have no connection to the American people, and they wouldn't even be able to speak the same language. Okay, so this new military that I envision Democrats trying to raise in the future is going to be probably a Spanish-speaking military based entirely on migrants who would not even understand the pleas of mercy of the American citizens that they're trying to kill. Okay, so that's how I kind of envision that developing. And it's I mean, what else are they going to do with all these migrants, right? These are low skilled people, right? And the way I envision them recruiting them, because they're bringing them into the country, they're going to get them settled. At some point, they're going to be like, hey, you see those people over there? They're trying to kick you out of this country and send you back where you came from. If you want to stay here, you better enlist, and in order to be able to stop them from doing that. Okay, so that's how they're going to that's how they're going to recruit those people, and of course they'll give them the reward of citizenship. So basically, they're going to replace the existing population with all the migrants they got coming across the border. So that's how I see this developing, right? And I did cover this in a video a very long time ago, where these migrants are going to play a key role. We see this, the reason why this immediately jumps out at me is because of my study of Roman history, okay? So with the Romans, what they did is, during the height of their power as they were expanding, what they would do is they would go into all these areas that they were expanding into, and they would recruit soldiers for their army, right? So let's say they expanded into Egypt, they would recruit soldiers there. They would expand into the Germanian areas, they would recruit soldiers from there. The Frankish areas, they would recruit soldiers from there. Gaul. It was, or let's say into the modern day Romanian areas, they would recruit soldiers from there. But what they would not do, right? These soldier recruits, the people that they recruited from those areas, they would send them to some other part of the empire to serve, right? So if they recruited a soldier, let's say in Anatolia, which is modern day Turkey, they wouldn't station them in Turkey because they're connected with the people that were in the area that they're stationed with. They would send them, let's say, to Germania, right? Modern day Germany. They would send them over there to serve. So they couldn't even communicate. They had no relationship with the people that they were trying to control over there. So if they were given the order to exterminate them, I mean, they would just do it because they were nothing to them, right? They didn't have any connection. So, and the soldiers that they recruited, let's say in the Germanic areas, they would send them to Germany, right? Or the soldiers that they recruited, let's say in Greece, they would send them to Spain. And the guys that they recruited in Spain, they would, or Iberia, they would send over to Greece. Okay, so this was a system that worked really well. It's very well established. If you want soldiers. If you want soldiers to exterminate people, right, you don't recruit soldiers from the same area where the extermination needs to be done. Okay, you recruit the soldiers from outside of that area, soldiers that speak a different language, and then you send them to the area where you want exterminating done. Okay, so I invite you guys to check out this video from Iraq Vet 8888, and finally, everybody else is starting to catch on with what I was saying some 10, 12 years ago, that absolutely, yes, the U.S. military will kill its own people if ordered to do so. The founding fathers of this country knew this 240 years ago, right? They said that they were against standing armies because they said sooner or later it will be used against its own people, okay? So this is not something new, okay? This is almost inevitable, right? Eventually it will happen. And I mean, that's kind of the unfortunate direction that we're going into. But one interesting thing that came up, there was a judge in Illinois, Southern Illinois. I think is Judge McGillian, something like that. Anyway, he issued a just yesterday. He issued a I forget what the word is. Basically, an injunction. He issued an injunction against the so-called assault weapons ban in Illinois. Okay, meaning that it prevents Illinois from enforcing its basically anti-AR-15 laws until the case is completely heard. And the only reason why an injunction would be issued is because it is highly likely that the case would be successful. But the interesting thing that he said in his ruling, right, he did mention that he did mention that the purpose of the Second Amendment was to oppose tyranny. Okay, so that's basically the final line, right? That's the final line, and this is from a federal judge. That this is the first judge that I have heard say this. I mean, lots of people have been saying it for many years, but this is the first time I have heard a federal judge acknowledge the historical fact that the reason why the founding fathers gave us a right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, is because they had just finished overthrowing a tyranny. So they, and in the process of setting up this new government, right, one of the big concerns that they had was that it would become tyrannical, right? We can see this in the Federalist Papers, in all the discussion that was held at the time as they were going through the ratification process. So we know that the founding fathers, when they were ratifying the Constitution, were very concerned that it might become tyrannical, right? Because of course, they had the recent memory of having just overthrown a tyranny. So it makes sense that they would have they would have given us the Second Amendment for that reason, right? And even though the Bill of Rights was not part of the original draft of the Constitution, many of the states, most of them northern states too, states like New York and New Jersey, as basically a condition of them ratifying the Constitution was that a Bill of Rights with a right to bear arms would be very quickly adopted. Okay, so that's another interesting part of history. So yeah, also you check out this this ruling for, I think it's Judge McGilly, I think, Southern Illinois, a federal judge. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. But I'm glad, what I was going to say is I'm glad that other people are finally starting to understand that there is a very high chance that sooner or later, okay, the U.S. military will be used against its own people, right? And they're going to do it by changing the military, right? First, by filling it with socialist leftists. They'll see how far that gets them. Eventually, they're going to fill it with all these migrants coming over the border. What else are they going to do with them? All right. Okay, so that's where I think we are. I'm going to leave this video up, not for too long, right? Because this is the type of video that's going to give me another strike and possibly get my channel shut down. So I'm just going to leave it up long enough for you guys to check out, and give it enough time to get copied over to the alternate platforms, right? So if you want to see this video in the future, you're gonna have to go find it on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, HugeTube, Utreon. I'm on all of them. Okay, just look up Safa or Pocono Shooting or Pocono Guns, or look up just one of the. If you go to those platforms, if you are not sure what the name of my channel is, just look up one of the titles to one of my videos, right? That's like unique to my channel, and that'll help you. That'll bring it up. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.